Hey, yo, what up?
What's up, y'all? This is Jeremiah.
What's up? This is Steve-O from Jackass. You're listening to Radio DePaul.
Radio DePaul.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's college connection.
I've taken some time out of my busy schedule, being fabulous and doing my hair, to prepare a speech for you. Well, a few remarks, really. Feminism is cancer. Thank you very much.
That is Milo Yiannopoulos, of course, who will be speaking here at DePaul tomorrow. And we are so fortunate to have Milo on the phone right now. Milo, how are you doing?
I'm so well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to have you.
That is very exciting. That's a lot of so.
I know. So, first of all, let's start with the obvious. You're coming to DePaul tomorrow. And to say the least, that's caused a little bit of commotion.
Just a little bit, maybe not too much.
You see, I never understand this. I'm just, I'm a lovely person. I just rock up. I talk a little about free speech. I mean, I don't have any idea what's so controversial about me.
So, just to start, how do you feel about, some of this opposition, some of the, big fuss that gets made over you coming and speaking at a college?
Well, it goes without saying that anybody that protests my talk is deeply stupid. And they're not just stupid because they, are misunderstanding the entire purpose of a university, which is to challenge yourself with points of view that you've never heard before, and to go to hear speakers that perhaps have points of view that you wouldn't otherwise have been exposed to. But they're also, of course, wrong on the facts because, the feminists who protest me are wrong about everything. The Black Lives Matter protesters, I have no idea why Black Lives Matter protest me. I have no clue. I mean, it's not like I don't do enough for the black community in America. I have no idea why they protest me. They show up, they protest me. They're wrong about everything, too. These people are deeply dumb. But, it's part of the fun and the circus of my Dangerous Faggot tour. So I'm very, they do my marketing for me. I'm very grateful to have them because all they really do through their shrieking and lunacy and intolerance and stupid posturing and virtue signaling is draw attention to my message, which is that American campuses have gone off the rails, that American campuses have become more preoccupied with being safe homes from home, being sort of cosseted environments in which people don't need to be challenged and merely spend 3 years away from their parents, becoming dumber than when they started. I suppose I'm grateful at least for drawing attention to that, because the more people that hear me, the more people seem to agree.
So going off of that, I mean, your Dangerous Faggot tour has been going on for a while now. You've been to many colleges already. I noticed some were canceled or some were rescheduled or something. Why were they canceled? Was that scheduling, or were they canceled because there was too much protest?
Well, sometimes university, it tends to be in Europe that universities will just outright cancel you. In America, they tend to let you speak, but there are protests, and then sometimes what happens is the university places hideous, onerous restrictions on speakers at the last minute. They put, horrible fees, at the last minute. They say, oh, well, you need 25 security guards. This is going to cost you an extra $2,000. This happened at Bucknell. It's also happened at DePaul. We've my publication Breitbart has had to foot some of the bill for this event because the university, in a typical slimy, disreputable maneuver in an attempt to get the event cancelled to make it impossible to stage, started layering on expenses to the poor kids that were trying to stage it. Very, very, underhand, slimy tactics to sort of try to cancel it without cancelling it. So, sometimes this stuff works, and sometimes I just think, it's not worth the drama, I can't be bothered. And other times, sometimes students get spooked by the strength and vitriol, the nastiness of the opposition from the crazy progressive left, from the feminist and social justice contingent on campus, and they suggest that it might be good to reschedule for later when they, have got more time to plan and whatever. So there are a variety of reasons why sometimes things get cancelled. But this year I'm doing 66 dates in 52 weeks. It was an extraordinary number of colleges to be visiting.
Definitely,
and everywhere I go, the message is the same. We're grateful that he came, and he's given us some things to think about that we hadn't otherwise considered. And it's worth pointing out that the faculty make students' life very difficult when they want to invite libertarian or conservative speakers, or even just speakers who go off reservation in some way, who upset the student union or upset the sort of received wisdom on campus. So the faculty can sometimes make it very difficult to get those speakers on campus. But once those speakers have been on campus, faculty suddenly start issuing these statements reaffirming the importance of free speech. I guess they think I'm some kind of, I don't know, far-right monster when I've actually been on campus and they realize I'm actually just some sassy fag with the wrong opinions, who quite likes free speech. They think, well, maybe this wasn't so bad after all. And, whether it's Rutgers or Minnesota or Pittsburgh, almost everywhere, all the big schools I've been to this year, almost all of them, either the dean or the president or the principal or the faculty have issued statements reaffirming the importance not just of free speech but of offensive free speech, because offensive free speech is, of course, what keeps us safe, what stops us from shooting each other, and speech that even some students are going to find hurtful or offensive or even, in their own words, hateful. The faculties everywhere I visit are reaffirming the importance of free speech in the wake of my talks. Now, that's an extraordinary achievement because it's something that conservatism and libertarianism and the free speech wing, if you like, free speech activists haven't achieved on American campuses in 35 years. For some reason, I'm doing it when nobody else could. So, I'm very happy with the progress of the tour so far. Many more dates to come and some very exciting, attention-seeking theatrical spectacles to come too. I think DePaul is going to be a little bit more of a grown-up affair tomorrow. I think we're sitting down for a nice kind of like a chat show style
Right.
Q&A, and then I'll take some questions from the audience. I'm very interested to see what this audience in particular has to ask me, because it's of course it's a Catholic university, and I'm being a gay Catholic conservative, there's a few different bits of my identity that don't always sit perfectly in line with one another. So I'm sure there's going to be
absolutely.
some great questions tomorrow.
That actually leads into one of our big questions is we do really kind of want to get into how you think. Because if someone just told me there's this gay British journalist with strong opinions on free speech and American politics, that's not, you're not who I picture in my head, if that makes sense.
What did you think they would look like?
I honestly, I picture someone who is very like.
I would picture you, just not with your.
I would picture
opinions.
you as a Sanders supporter. I don't know exactly what I picture. But so
Okay.
why are you you? Let's just kind of get into your head a little bit there.
I don't know. I mean, I've always been the same person. I've always been ridiculous. I think I've always been pretty much the same. I think I've been the same for as long as I can remember. I wasn't very fashionable at one point because I was saying all the things that I'm saying now, but perhaps a little bit too early when people weren't quite ready to hear them. Mm-hmm. So I got fired like a bunch of times from the newspapers I was working for in England. Oh, I think I got fired from one newspaper about 4 times. And they kept hiring me back on more money, so they kind of hated me that much. But it's sort of my time now. I think the progressive left has run so rampant on campuses, and so many people are incensed by their language policing and nannying. And I think parents too, horrified by what's happening to their kids when they send them off to college. I mean, think about what happened at Missouri. The college pandered to the worst kind of dishonest, disreputable hoaxing and race baiting. And what's happened? Well, admissions have collapsed. Alumni donations have collapsed. Why? Well, this isn't a student response. This is an adult response. People who graduated from that school and people who send their kids to college are just refusing to patronize Missouri. Why? Because this college is pandering to the worst kind of counterfactual victimhood hoax culture and social justice nonsense. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your radio show, so I'll say nonsense.
It's after 10. I think we're fine.
We're a little more lenient at that after that.
Fine, social justice horse shit. And so what's the inevitable consequence? Well, the school is now in serious financial trouble. Parents are listening to this stuff, and parents are getting very worried about it, and parents are not liking what they're hearing. And I think I guess I've just come into fashion in the last year or two. But it's like a freight train. It's like a runaway thing. My popularity is exploding, and I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anybody whose profile has grown as fast as mine has who doesn't have like a record deal or a TV show. It just doesn't happen for journalists normally. And I think what it indicates is that I've really sort of struck a nerve with the silent majority, whether it's parents or also students who are tired of being tyrannized by a small, vocal, far-left minority who do not represent the majority and whose opinions and whose prejudices, because that's largely what they are not based on fact, but based on feeling and based on kooky, weird, far left, crackpot social science. They don't represent the facts. They don't represent reality. And for some reason, I think a confluence of, my sort of slightly silly personality and attention-seeking antics and charm and wit and popularity and all those other things and modesty, and the fact that, that social justice has sort of overreached over the last couple of years, I think is why I'm popular now.
Okay.
Well, I personally think you're popular because your hair is fabulous, but that could just be me.
Thank you, my angel. I knew as soon as this interview started you were going to end up my favorite.
Amazing. Actually, it's interesting that you talk about that. We took some questions off of our Facebook page, and one person, Christian, he asked, do you dislike feminism as a whole in talking about social justice? Do you dislike feminism as a whole, as the entire movement, or just this third wave feminism that's kind of plaguing our society right now?
It's a good question, because people sometimes, when they hear these sort of attention-grabbing statements like feminism is cancer, it's easy, if you want to misrepresent them, to make it sound like somebody hates women, which of course is not what it means. And it's also easy to, it can be confusing, I guess, sometimes. The truth is, we should be enormously proud of the history of feminism. We should be hugely happy at the advances that women have made in the West, which they have not made elsewhere in the world. The genuine patriarchies in the Middle East and the Islamic world, women have not made these advances. But in the West, women have equal access to the workplace, to our great institutions, to education. They're paid the same. They have all the same opportunities as men. And in many cases, they're actually accelerating past men, whether it's in education, you name it. Almost every metric about education in the workplace that there is now shows that women under 35 are accelerating past men. So, women have got all these extraordinary opportunities, and in many cases are now succeeding better than their male counterparts. To my mind, feminism has performed its function. It's run its course, and it's time to congratulate ourselves, pat ourselves on the back, and shut up shop. Because what's happened to feminism, now that it's won all the battles that it wants to win, is it has refused to recognize its own victory. And instead, it's become ever more hysterical about ever more trivial and imaginary nonsense. It's become a sort of bitter, man-hating, lesbianic horror show. Basically, if you look at the makeup of gender studies departments, women's studies departments, you can look down the list of professors. It's Dyke, divorcee, Dyke. These are miserable man-haters who are spreading conspiracy theories, hateful nonsense about men to a generation of vulnerable young girls. I mean, everybody goes into college slightly vulnerable. They haven't worked out their sexuality, their personality, whatever, and everybody thinks that they're a victim of something of some kind. And you've got these gender studies and women's studies departments who are telling women that everything that is wrong with their life is the fault of some mystical force called the patriarchy or some men that are around them. It's just not true. It's irresponsible, it's sociopathic, and it's dangerous. And I think that particular brand of feminism, that third wave feminism, is toxic, and that's the feminism I'm referring to when I say things like feminism is cancer.
Okay.
I don't know if you have your Google alerts turned on for your name, but the DePaul posted an article about you, and I just wanted to hear if you could respond to this statement here, which is,
sure.
While he may be successful in in regards to your speeches, while it may be successful in inciting protest, he is using his speech not to contribute to the discussion, but instead make inflammatory, unsubstantiated claims with the explicit purpose of causing anger, essentially building a wall of animosity instead of promoting respect, tolerance, and open discourse between ideologies. It is disturbingly hypocritical.
Well, the only thing I would disagree with there is unsubstantiated. I mean, sure, I'm inflammatory on purpose. Yes, I upset people on purpose. Get over it. Deal with it. We live in a culture now, sort of a therapy culture, where everyone is determined to be nice to each other all the time. It's incredibly fucking boring. It's incredibly dull. It's so suffocating, this need to be nice. Well, I'm not nice. I quite like winding people up. I like making people think. And if you don't like that particular method of rhetoric and that particular style, don't come to my talks. But I disagree with the unsubstantiated, because unlike my ideological adversaries, my ideological opponents, everything I say is rooted in fact and statistic and study. Feminism and progressivism, the social justice instinct, Black Lives Matter in addition to a certain extent, is based largely on feelings. It's based on a victimhood and grievance culture that invokes specters. It invokes conspiracy theories like the patriarchy that have no basis in fact. They're sort of social science constructs. They're not real. They're not actual things. They're just something that people can allude to to sort of explain away their problems. Well, I prefer to deal in data, statistics, numbers, and it's very difficult for the left to fight on those grounds because they just don't have the facts on their side. So I would disagree with the unsubstantiated, but if the person who wrote that piece is upset by my style, then my response is tough shit.
Okay, so here's another question. This one actually comes from Shelley, who's one of our news directors here at the radio station. She asks, do you think that calling your opponents stupid and dumb helps your cause, or are you just using those terms to further your brand and cause even more controversy?
Well, I don't think it furthers anyone's brand to call other people stupid unless they are stupid, in which case you're shown you're merely shown in a positive light because you have the balls to call dumb people out for being dumb when they're dumb, which very few people in public life do these days. I think if somebody is ostentatiously poorly educated and stupid and is buying into the worst sort of pandering, low-level, as I keep saying, conspiracy theories, fact-free, evidence-free nonsense, and is taking other people with them, and is clearly, among the university cohort, let us say, not the sharpest tool in the box, which might be why they're doing women's studies in the first place instead of a real subject. I have no compunction and no hesitation in calling them dumb. Dumb people are dumb. I mean, what do you want from me?
I kind of want to go back to something you were talking about earlier, back to this whole feminism thing. You're saying that we don't need it anymore, that we've accomplished what it was for. And I guess, looking at first wave, which was suffrage, second wave was equal pay. Now this third wave is like the patriarchy, as you're talking about. Do you genuinely believe that we don't need like the pure feminism that we had earlier? I mean, granted, things are definitely better than they were in the 20s, but like women don't even have a right to their own bodies.
How do you suffer as a woman in America today? Tell me.
Well, I mean, it goes.
More women go to college. More women graduate from college. You get higher degrees. You have a 2-to-1 advantage when you go into the workplace if you're in STEM fields. Women, 97% of workplace fatalities are male. Women pay far less into the tax system but take far more out because they get sick more often and live longer. If there is a patriarchy, it's not doing a very good job, is it?
No, that's true. But then you also have the issue of women. There are places where women can't get abortions, and if they try to, they're protested heavily and they're threatened. I mean, it's old grandfather laws that still exist.
We obviously have a different point of view on that because I don't believe in the rights of murderers. I believe in the rights of the unborn. So, I mean, you're using the cozy, soft, nice, sweet language of the left. Women's right to their own bodies. Well, that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about murdering babies. So, if I think we're going to talk at cross purposes there. Any real significant, meaningful way in which women can claim to be disadvantaged in society, except for murdering their unborn children, I just don't think you can support with facts. I don't think you can support with numbers. The data, whether it's from the Department of Justice, whether it's from the Bureau of Statistics, the data does not support the claim that women are an oppressed class in America. Quite the reverse. All of the data suggests that women are actually doing better than men in education, in the workplace, and everywhere else.
I would agree in education and the workplace, but life is not just education and the workplace. Life is also the social interactions you have, and many women, myself included, tend to feel very threatened going out in public with the way we're treated, with the way, not all men, obviously, but certain men who tend to make their... I'm not kidding.
You've got to be kidding. Come off it. You feel threatened when you walk into the street. You need to toughen up, love. I mean, our parents' generation would have, if somebody catcalled them in the street, they would have turned around and said, go fuck yourself. Your generation thinks it's cause for like a sexual assault claim or, oh my God, I feel so threatened. You're not threatened by somebody expressing sexual interest in you.
Well, maybe threatened wasn't the correct word. I wouldn't say that.
That's not a threat. This is the problem with this generation of students, right? They articulate discomfort in the language of personal safety. You're not unsafe. You're not threatened. Threatened is someone with a knife to your throat. That doesn't happen. And if it does happen, you're being disadvantaged by these ludicrous consent classes, the underlying message of which is that all young men are rapists and all the rest of it, because you are being encouraged to believe that somebody putting their hand on your leg or giving you a compliment you don't want is the worst that you're ever going to have to come into contact with. Well, what Camille Paglia said in the 90s, probably the best feminist critic possibly of all time, was that this sort of wrapping women in cotton wool and encouraging them to use words like safety and threatened, all this abuse and harassment nonsense that you hear on the internet, actually disguises the real threats out there. If you tell women that this is the worst that's ever going to happen to them and that all men are potential rapists and the slightest of infractions represent sexual assault, it diminishes the real threats from sexual assault, and it stops women from preparing themselves for the real stuff. If you tell women they can go out, they can dress in whatever they want, they can do whatever they want, that their self-esteem does not depend on what a man looks at them, they can dress in the shortest skirt they want and go out at 3 a.m. and no man has a right to look at them. Well, yeah, fine, that's going to work with nice middle to upper class boys doing English at universities who, sort of bewildered by the whole experience of women in the first place. But it ain't going to stop you. It ain't going to stop you getting raped by some, 40-year-old monster in a dark alley behind a nightclub because you're not looking after yourself. It will not save you. No consent class has ever stopped any rape ever. No rapist in college has ever decided, you know what, actually, I was going to go and rape somebody, but since I sat down and heard about all this stuff about the patriarchy, I don't think I'll commit sexual assault today after all. It doesn't happen. It's insane. What we're doing is we're setting women up to be more vulnerable, not less. And by suggesting that, walking through the street, if you get catcalled or if somebody gives you a compliment that you don't like, that you're somehow unsafe or threatened, is frankly preposterous and I don't use this word very often, offensive to victims of real sexual assault.
That was pretty solid.
So what you're saying is that some of this is a two-way street. It's up to men to know how to respect people, and it's up to women to make sure that they are safe, and not know and to understand what actually being threatened is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, I mean, it's a question of common sense and perspective. Look, the dirty secret, feminism sometimes kind of gets things almost right, but then reaches the wrong conclusions. There is something dangerous about male sexuality. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes the best sex the best sex. That's what women like about men. They like bad boys. They like the danger. That doesn't mean that all men are rapists. It means that there is an element of male sexuality which is edgy and dangerous and all the rest of it. Now, that's not the same thing as suggesting that all men are going to overpower you and are going to rape you. At university, at college, where you are now, people are working through their sexual identities. They're working out if they're even heterosexual. They are learning how to deal with the opposite sex. Now, there are going to be blunders and fumbles and awkward situations. There's going to be regret. There's going to be people who sort of wish they hadn't had sex with that person they had sex with. There are going to be unwanted advances. But if you, as so many colleges, so many universities do now, reclassify unwanted advances as sexual assault, which is so insane. I mean, you have to close every nightclub in the country. If you reclassify unwanted sexual assault, unwanted advances of sexual assault, you're effectively criminalizing an entire and a completely essential part of sexual, of the growth of your sexual identity, of that experimentation that's so necessary to form healthy relationships with people later in life. This is what I object to. Nobody is saying that rape is not a problem and it doesn't happen. Nobody is saying that women don't deserve to be safe and to feel safe when they're out in the street. Nobody is saying that men shouldn't learn to behave themselves and there are lines they should not cross. However, unwanted advances and catcalling and all that kind of stuff aren't that big a deal, and you need to get over it, because if you can't cope with that, and if you go through life saying that, I feel unsafe walking down the street, what the hell are you going to be like when something really bad happens to you?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're essentially saying that there's been a bastardization of all of these terms that are legitimate issues, but, somewhere along the way, things got misconstrued and now everything is an issue and everything is offensive.
Well, what's happened is that, rape rates have been going down for 30 years. And one of the safest places it's possible to be for a woman is a university campus. It's one of the places where rape rates are the lowest. But if you were to listen to the progressive left, you'd think that the, 1 in 3, 4, 5, whatever it is this week, women supposedly sexually assaulted on campus. Well, that's comparable to the Congo, where rape is used as a weapon of war. It just doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's completely nuts. And what the left has to do is, has a supply and demand problem with these things. It has to broaden the definition of rape, broaden the definition of sexual assault to keep the numbers up. Because if it was honest about it, it would have to admit that rape just doesn't happen that much on campus. It happens, too much. Any is too much. But there is a world of difference between what the Department of Justice statistics say, which is 1 in 52 women experiences some kind of sexual assault, and 1 in 3, 4, 5, which is what you'll read in Salon BuzzFeed, Gawker, Mike, Vox, The Guardian, and from all of these feminist groups on campus. It's not true. It's a lie, and it doesn't help women to lie to them. And the only way to arrive at those statistics is to broaden the definition of sexual assault so massively that you are capturing perfectly healthy, normal sexual behavior between boys and girls as they are finding their feet and exploring each other.
Okay, so you mentioned sexuality earlier. Obviously, it's no secret that you are gay, but
People have picked up on this. People have picked up on this.
So,
I don't believe it.
It always surprises people. I have to convince them at the beginning of every talk. They don't believe me.
So you have made some statements that have been anti-LGBT rights. Once again, just getting into your heads, what is
rights?
Just gay marriage, specifically a big one prior.
Well,
to...
I've never said that gay marriage should be illegal. I've just said that I wish gay people wouldn't do it. I don't think that's me speaking against LGBT rights, is it?
Not necessarily. I just want to.
No, I'm saying they have the right to do it, and we can't stop them doing it.
You're allowed to have your own preferences when it comes to that, I suppose.
Right,
no one can make you believe it.
That's all I've expressed. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm just interested in what you think is me speaking against gay rights, because I don't think I've ever done that.
Well,
I mean, that's what the activists will say on their billboards, but they're wrong. So I'm just interested in what you have read that you think is against gay rights.
Oh, most of this comes from people asking general questions to us to ask you. I was just trying to bring it up. So
they're idiots.
Yeah. So then, could you clarify your stance on LGBT rights and such?
Of course. Well, look, I mean, gay marriage, you can't really deny two people who love each other the right to, be able to visit each other in hospital and that kind of stuff, right? I wish they wouldn't do it, because for me, the essence of gay sexuality, the essence of gay identity is in the fun, mischievous, dissident kind of rule-breaking, taboo-smashing, of drag culture. And the gays who are so overrepresented in art and culture, the inventors, the painters, gays are massively overrepresented in all of the kind of groups that really push culture and society forward. Partly because we test higher for IQ, but partly also because gays have a license to push the boundaries in the way that heterosexuals don't, because heterosexuals are tied down with the institutions of marriage and family and all the rest of it. Gay people, are allowed to tumble out of clubs on Monday afternoon off their face on drugs, and no one can really say anything. They don't have the same kind of familial ties. They don't have kids to look after, all the rest of it. And that gives gay people sort of the imaginative and cognitive freedom to sometimes come up with really wonderful things, whether it's symphonies or paintings or whatever. Sometimes they make great warlords, whatever.
It's about that counterculture for you, then.
Yes, I think it's a shame. I mean, gay culture is basically dead. There is nothing interesting about gay culture now. Gay culture effectively does not exist. It has become. It is now the blandest, most boring, most embarrassing subculture in America. It has nothing to show for it, nothing to say for itself. I mean, you can imagine the great dissident queer thinkers like William S. Burroughs or Quentin Crisp. Think of the artists of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s. AIDS really destroyed gay culture because it turned gays into hypersensitive, safe, bourgeois, domesticated bores. And the progressive left capitalized on that because what it wanted was to sort of get gay people in little cul-de-sacs, get them married off to each other, tame down the partying, and just get them to vote Democrat forever. And that's effectively what they've done. Gay people now live in ghettos, just like blacks live in ghettos. They live in West Hollywood, or they live in the Castro, or they live in these little areas where they pair up together, they get a dog, or they adopt a kid, and they don't cause trouble anymore. Well, all of the best things about being gay, and all of the things that have enabled gay people to reach the heights of cultural accomplishment over the last 2,000 years, going back to the Greeks and Romans, are being sort of trampled out by this very new, modern, and in my mind quite weird demand from the progressive left that gay people should become domesticated and conservatized. I mean, it's the conservatism of it's the sort of conservatization of homosexuals, making them sort of sign up to all of these traditionalist structures like marriage, which stamps out all of the best things about being gay and prevents them from achieving any of the things that gay people have been able to achieve. So that's my reasoning as to why I think it's a shame gay people are getting married in such large numbers, flocking to an institution that even heterosexuals are abandoning. But I have never said that they should be forbidden from doing it.
Are you against marriage? Maybe not against marriage, but do you just kind of feel marriage is pointless in general, or only when it comes to gays?
No, not at all. It's the building block of society. It's the cohesive glue that binds nations together. If you look at the developing world, those countries that are exciting, that are growing quickly, that are, the powers of tomorrow, whether it's Russia, India, China, families are very strong. The family unit is very strong. There's no clamor for gay marriage. There's no preoccupation with transgender rights. People understand the importance of the nuclear family. In the West, where we've got sort of lazy and decadent about things, the family is breaking down with predictable and horrible results, particularly for minorities. No, I mean, marriage is the most important thing there is. I just wish gays wouldn't do it.
Absolutely. We only have a few minutes left. I want to talk about your talk tomorrow. Do you have kind of a game plan going into a speech like this at DePaul?
No, I don't. I just hope to come out alive. I just want to avoid marauding feminist assailants. I'm not too worried about them. They can barely tie their own shoelaces together, so I'm not too concerned about getting attacked by feminists. No, I think it's going to be nice. Sometimes I do lectures, and sometimes I just sort of do a Q&A. So I think tomorrow's like a Q&A. We're going to do like a nice little fireside chat, sort of chat show style format with one of the organizing students, and then it's just going to throw it open to a Q&A with the audience. The Q&A is the bit I like, because we have conversations like the three of us just had, which are interesting and engaging and challenging, and everybody can come away thinking, okay, well, I hadn't considered that before. And they come away with something to think about. And I think what people like most about my talks is getting the opportunity to ask me shit so that we can start a dialogue and I can say something interesting and provocative and new that they hadn't heard before, and they can go away and decide whether it changed their mind or not. So the Q&A is really what I come for. It's what I love the most. And so I think we're going to spend most of our time on that tomorrow.
I can say, Milo, after this, I really wasn't sure of my opinion on you or like what you talk about. But after this conversation, it was really nice. And this is something that we like to talk about a lot on the show, is the importance of conversation. Whether or not you agree with someone, it's important to hear what they're saying and to listen to what they have to say, because definitely, like, my opinion has been changed after talking to you. You're not as bad as you could have been.
Everybody says this. I feel like I'm talk by talk, college by college, I'm destroying my reputation as a hellraiser, as a dangerous faggot. I think everyone thinks I'm lovely now. My career is over. By the end of the year, I'm going to be done. I'll have to retire. So thank you for saying that. I would just say, that most of the reason that people think I'm some kind of monster is because, as happened during this interview, you kind of take claims uncritically and present them to certain kinds of speaker. It never happens to liberals. It only ever happens to conservatives and libertarians. You have said things against gay rights. What have you got to say for yourself? Well, I didn't. I never have. It's a much more subtle and I think much more interesting position than that. But if you listen to the way that leftists protest people and then take those factually inaccurate protests and form them as questions, or allow them to form your perceptions of people who have much more subtle sophisticated positions than social justice protesters would ever admit, then I think it's easy to assume that somebody is a monster. It's easy to come to a decision, or to sort of presuppose that somebody is some kind of pointless attention seeker. Actually, it's always a good idea to show up and to listen and to find out what this person actually really does believe. And that's what the progressive left doesn't understand. It doesn't seem to accommodate the idea that you could go to listen to a speaker even if you don't agree with them. And many of the people in the audiences for my talks come even though they don't agree, or they think they're not going to agree with anything that I have to say, and they go away thinking, oh, well, actually, And this is because people's perceptions of me are very often formed by the lowest common denominator, the, dumbest people in the room, the social justice warriors. These are the stupidest people in college. Don't be fooled by their long words. Don't be fooled by microaggressions, trigger warnings, safe spaces, the patriarchy, these big words they use to bamboozle and scare you. Make no mistake, these are the stupidest people in college. They're the stupidest people on campus. Do not allow them to form your perceptions of anyone or anything.
Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight,
Thank
Milo.
you for entering our safe space.
Thank you for keeping me safe, and let's see if I escape unscathed tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be very well behaved. I'm sure it's going to be a huge disappointment, but we'll see.
If you have any concerns about Catholic values at this school, don't have any concerns about Catholic values. We're a different brand of Catholicism here.
Really? Well, I can't entirely claim to be the most godly Catholic myself.
Neither can we.
I'm what you might call a cultural Catholic, so I'm sure we're going to get on fine.
There you go. Milo Yiannopoulos, he will be here at the Student Center tomorrow at 6 p.m. Once again, thank you so much for coming on the air.
Thank you, Milo. It was so nice to talk to you.
You have a great night.
I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
That was Milo Yiannopoulos, guys. That's...
Wow. Okay.
I don't know what else to say.
I think we achieved our goal of just wanting him to come on the show and have a dialogue. Let him talk without, let him talk without trying to convince him that he's wrong. Just asking him questions. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you believe in, X, Y, Z. And it was nice. One, because I won't be able to go see him tomorrow. But, yeah, I don't know. What did you think, Rob? I think he's a cool guy. I mean, yeah, I don't agree with some of the stuff. I don't agree with some of his methods, but I see no problem with some things that he says.
I think it sits in the area we've always been a fan of here at the D-List, which is if you have an opinion and you can back it up, that's more important than anything else. That
right. Whether it's right or wrong, if you have supporting arguments, you're pretty solid. I think it was fascinating to have him on. So we're gonna take a quick break, decompress, and we will be back with D-List, A-List, and Trump Watch. Thank you guys so much for listening to this interview. It was fun.